Hello, my name is Jessica Lascano, and today I'm going to talk to you a bit about the fentanyl crisis. This is a big problem for youth in America, and we are seeing many children who become either addicted or who unfortunately pass away from this drug. What's really important to know about fentanyl is that a person can die from just using it one time, and most kids don't have any idea that they're actually consuming fentanyl when they're purchasing pills and other illicit substances from the streets or from drug dealers. So we're going to talk a bit about that today. I really hope that you can take the time to watch this video in its entirety. It'll take about 15 minutes. And I also want to let you know that I'm happy to allow you to share any of the materials I've provided with you today. I really hope that you give them to other parents or to students that you think may find it helpful. And I really want to educate people on this topic because it's a big problem. And I see many children who are really battling with this, and their families suffer and they suffer, and it doesn't have to be this way. And we need to get this education out to help people. This is my biography. In short, I've been in education almost 20 years. Prior to being a school psychologist, I was a special education teacher. Currently, I work in a juvenile hall with many children who are adjudicated and who have used drugs themselves. And I see what happens when people are actively using fentanyl, how the withdrawal looks. And I also get to learn a little bit about the devastation that this drug can cause for families. Beyond this role, I am the CEO of a company known as Strive ABC. That's Strive Assessment, Behavior Support, and Consultation. And I support families and school districts with meeting their needs in order to help children. So if you need any help, you can always contact me. Beyond this, I run an Instagram account called Practical School Psychology, where I like to share information, explanation, ideas, and resources. If you'd like to check that out, please click on this link here, and you'll be able to see my page, Practical School Psychology, which is open to the public and found on Instagram. If you have questions or if you need to contact me for some reason, you're welcome to also use my contact information at the end of this presentation. Again, I'm happy to help. And if I can't help you directly, I will try my best to either get you resources or to link you with someone who can help you. So some things to know about fentanyl. It's very potent. It's a very powerful drug. And according to the CDC, from April 2020 to April 2021, there were 100,306 overdoses. And these overdoses, the majority of them were from fentanyl. When we're thinking about fentanyl, it's important to know that there is a medical grade fentanyl that's typically used in surgeries, or if it's consumed by people, it is people who are very ill, who have a debilitating type of pain, such as that associated with cancer or tumors. And these are people who are going to be closely monitored. So no doctor is going to give out fentanyl as a painkiller in a very casual manner. It's going to be very regulated. And another thing to understand is that fentanyl, because it's mostly used for surgeries or chronic pain, is not going to be provided in pill form medically. So medically, fentanyl is provided in things like patches, lozenges, lollipops. There's no pill form of fentanyl that is legitimately pharmaceutical. So it's important to keep that in mind. The second thing to know is that what children and teenagers are finding on the streets is not fentanyl that is from a doctor or a pharmacist. What they're finding on the street is what we call clandestine fentanyl. That means it's fentanyl that has been made by drug dealers or other people who are creating it in garages, warehouses, and other places that are very unscientific and that do not have any type of quality control that we would find from pharmaceutical companies or from doctors. So it's very important to understand that when kids are going out in the streets and they're buying a pill and they think that they're buying Adderall or Xanax or M30s, it is none of those. It is fentanyl that has been mixed into a powder form using a recipe and then mixed with other substances, then pressed into a pill form with the stamp that makes it look legitimate, and it's not. It is very difficult for anyone to get a hold of legitimate pharmaceutical type drugs and sell those on the street because the pharmaceutical drugs are very regulated. So any type of pill, whether it says it's legitimate or not, whether it's stamped or not, whether it looks like Adderall, Xanax, M30s, etc. or not, that is found on the street can be presumed to contain fentanyl and to have been made by people who are producing these counterfeit pills. According to the DEA, when they test what's out there on the street, the great majority of pills on the street, 60% of them, have enough fentanyl to be lethal. And the DEA and the CDC report that other illicit substances that in the past have been what we call casual use drugs now have some form of fentanyl in them. So we're seeing rising deaths with cocaine and methamphetamine and heroin overdoses. But when toxicology reports are done, what we're finding is that the people who are overdosing from these drugs also have fentanyl in their system. And so we know that drug dealers and other people who are providing these drugs to people are not saving the fentanyl solely for the pills. They're mixing it into other drugs. And that's very dangerous because sometimes people purchase a drug and they think that they're in the clear because it's not fentanyl or pressed pills they're purchasing, it's cocaine, for example, and they're not understanding that these other illicit drugs now also have fentanyl. So when you're having this conversation with your children, it's very important to let them know that no matter what they're consuming, if it's purchased from the street, if it's a drug, there is a great probability that it has fentanyl in it. And I have statistics that I was able to obtain from NIDA, which is the National Institute on Drug Abuse, which will show you visually numbers of people who are dying from overdoses from drugs that were once considered casual use that are no longer casual use because they have fentanyl in them. So it's very important to understand this. And just something else I want to say, I know I'm focusing on kids today, but it may be that you have a loved one in your life or a friend who also may be having some problems with addiction. So if you're learning about this topic and you want to help your friend or family member, please do, and check out the National Institute on Drug Abuse to find some resources. In 2022, the DEA seized enough fentanyl to kill every American. Fentanyl is very potent, as I mentioned earlier. So 1 kilogram of fentanyl, which is 2.2 pounds, is enough to kill 500,000 people. So you can imagine how many drugs that 2.2 pounds of fentanyl can make, how many pressed pills. Fentanyl withdrawal is uncomfortable. So a lot of users will continue to use fentanyl because they don't like the discomfort of the withdrawal. It makes their brain feel like it's unable to escape. And it tells them, their brain will tell them, you know, you've got to keep using really, or else you're going to die, which is not the case, but that's what it feels like. There is something called Narcan. It's also known as naloxone, and that can reverse a fentanyl overdose. So if you have somebody who might have a problem with fentanyl, it's important to get a Narcan or naloxone available to you so you can administer it if you start to see them having an overdose. There is a big risk of suicide for fentanyl users. So when people use fentanyl, it creates changes in the brain, which I'll talk about in a second. And one of the potential aftermaths is this risk of suicide. So it's really important for us to avoid stigma if we want to help our family members and get in there and support them in a different way, which can be challenging, I'll be honest with you, because when people are using fentanyl, they're not themselves. When people use fentanyl, their pain receptors are blocked, and the fentanyl being used releases these large amounts of dopamine in the brain. And dopamine is a feel-good chemical, but we're not supposed to have this super rush of it, which is what fentanyl does. It releases so much at a time that there's this euphoric feeling, and the person who's using is able to escape feelings of maybe sadness or other types of problems in their life that they're having. And so they really tend to enjoy it. And that first high cannot be replicated because it's releasing so much dopamine that the body is not going to recover and release that amount of dopamine again. So over time, there's less and less dopamine to be released, and the high gets lower and lower. And at the end of their addiction, when they're starting to get to a point of, really maybe seeking help, that user is typically using because they just want to avoid withdrawal and the discomfort of withdrawal. This is a picture just to show you how much counterfeit pills look like real and legitimate pills. So you can see that there are some real pills versus fake pills in all of these photos, and you can visually inspect them for yourself and see how it's very difficult to tell whether or not these pills are legitimate or not. And this is the problem our kids are having. They think that they're on the street and they're taking a Xanax, for example, and that's a legitimate Xanax, and it's not. So again, the message to kids is, if you're taking a pill and it's from the street, it is counterfeit and it has fentanyl. So please make sure that you are explaining that to your children. This is a quick video we're going to watch. It's about the chocolate chip cookie effect. And I am going to make sure that my sound is optimized. Yes, it is. And we're going to watch this quick clip.
Let's talk about the chocolate chip cookie effect. Pretend this cookie is a pressed pill and the chocolate chips are fentanyl. Because fentanyl is never evenly distributed throughout the base powder mixture of the pill, part of the pill might not have any fentanyl, where the other part has a lot. Once the pill is pressed, the components are locked into place, and this is what we call the chocolate chip cookie effect. Because of the chocolate chip cookie effect, the test strip's instructions say you have to test the entire pill. You have to crush it up and dissolve the whole thing in water. This goes for every single pill that you have. Just because one pill tests negative doesn't mean that the rest of the bag is safe. This all means that there's no such thing as a pill that's been tested. If it's in a pill form, it's never been tested. Remember, if you didn't get it from your doctor, it's a fake and it's probably made of fentanyl. Even if you test, one pill can kill.
So it's really important to get that message out to our kids. Just one time can kill someone, because we really don't know about the distribution of fentanyl in these pills that are made in warehouses, garages, etc., by people who are not pharmacists and who have no scientific background. This next visual just helps people to understand how much it is required to overdose. So you can see like heroin as compared to fentanyl, heroin as compared to fentanyl, as compared to another much more potent analog to fentanyl, which is called carfentanil. And you can see just how little you need of that particular chemical to overdose. And then you can see the amount of fentanyl needed as compared to a penny. And then this is a chart that you can talk to your kids about, which just gives a visual of the amount that's lethal of each of these opioids. And you can see just how little fentanyl is needed as compared to morphine. And believe it or not, there are even stronger opioids that you'll see here, and you can see those as compared to fentanyl. So it's really important to get people understanding just how easy it is to ingest too much of this drug and overdose. And we're going to watch this quick video.
This is enough fentanyl to kill you. And if you think this is a lot, you'd be dead wrong.
So that video really helps us to understand just how little fentanyl is needed. Again, visually, it's a good one to show kids so they can begin to comprehend that fentanyl enough to kill can really be in one pill. And it's very easy for it to sneak in that pill, and for people who are consuming to have no idea. The other thing I really want to talk about is, if you're suspecting an overdose, please call 911 immediately. If you're around people, give the job to someone in particular, like say Jessica, call 911, because in emergencies, people tend to think somebody else is going to do whatever the job that's being assigned to the group is. Make sure that you have access to naloxone if you have a loved one who might have this type of problem, which is also known as Narcan, and keep it on hand. If you need to find some, you can click here. You can also look at this website to learn more about how to reduce harm. You can also begin CPR, especially if you don't have the Narcan, you can begin CPR. Even if you do, you can think about CPR, but get on the phone with 911 and follow directions. It's important for me to share with you that none of this I provided today is legal advice, and it's not medical advice or guidance. It's just what I've learned so far in researching the topic, and in being involved with families and children who are struggling with this issue. So please know that you should get continued support and help in this arena if you need help. These are some resources that will help you. You can either click on these links here, or you can use your phone to scan and you'll be taken to Padlets. You'll find a Padlet here in English, which is going to have multiple resources. You scroll on the bottom, left and right, and you scroll up and down in each column. So take a look at that website and you can click on each resource individually. This is the same thing, but this is provided en español. Entonces aquí tenemos recursos para ustedes que hablan en español y quieren aprender más sobre el fentanilo. Vas a ver recursos aquí. So I hope that today has helped you. And if you need to reach me, like I promised earlier, here's my contact information, as well as my LinkedIn and my email. I'm happy to support anyone I can, or to get you on to someone who can help you directly. Thank you for your time, and I hope that your children and you stay healthy.